Perfect. So just first up, just an acknowledgement of country. Maroondah City Council, in the spirit of reconciliation, acknowledges the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation as traditional custodians of the land on which we are gathered today. Our Indigenous Australians have performed age-old ceremonies. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. So in terms of an agenda for the OneCouncil purchasing training today, just an introduction, we'll run through a bit about the training access because in addition to this session and some of the other sessions that we have, we've also got user guides and videos that are going to be available. We'll run through the source to pay process, so what a purchase looks like end to end, from raising the requisition to receiving the goods and getting the payment through. And then we'll run through a demonstration of what the purchasing process looks like within OneCouncil. And if you want to follow along, we've provided you all the access, so I'll run you through how to actually access the system when we get to that point. And then the second half of this session is more Q&A. So once we've finished all the actual content and demonstration and stuff, if you have any questions, feel free to stick around and ask anything. We can run through any scenarios, or if you have any questions about the project or the system, whether it be purchasing related or not, that's perfectly fine. Otherwise, if you do have other things you need to get to after the first half of the session, feel free to go get an hour back in your calendars. But yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So just in terms of introductions, for those who don't know me in the room, my name's Aisha. I'm the change specialist for the ERP project. So I'm doing I'm in charge of the change management for OneCouncil. So in terms of implementations and stuff, making sure that there's training availability, making sure that people know what's going on and the comms are out there for the ERP project and OneCouncil. To support the session today, we've also got Nina in the back there from procurement, because obviously at the purchasing process, Nina's going to be the process owner for that. And we've also got Dan from the AP team who's going to come, and he will be supporting from the AP side, because obviously the connection there with the invoicing. So in terms of the session outcomes for today, number one, we just wanted to make sure we all know where training resources are accessible, because we'll be running these trainings and we'll make the recordings available, but post go live, obviously, and in the lead up to other go lives for the OneCouncil system, and kind of in perpetuity, the training availability will be mostly around the user guides and instructional videos for newcomers or people who are changing roles or something like that. So we need to know where those training materials are. I'm also going to be providing you with the new source to pay life cycle, like I said, and then we'll complete a walkthrough that we can follow along as needed. Perfect. So for training material access, everything that we're going to run through today, throughout the whole process, there are user guides and instructional videos available already on SmartNet. So if you just go to SmartNet, you can type in OneCouncil, and then there should be a OneCouncil training and support page there. So for all the processes today, as well as all the processes that we're releasing as part of the July 1 go live, there are user guides, videos. We're doing these in-person training sessions, and as well, like I said, we're going to be recording these sessions and posting them on that page for anyone interested. So just as, I guess, proof, you just go to SmartNet and then you type in OneCouncil. You've just got the OneCouncil training support page here. And so there's a little bit of information about the training and support, what's sort of coming with the July 1 go live. As well as if you do ever need to contact the project, obviously, if you want some information about any of the system modules that are being released, or about the project or anything like that, you can obviously contact any one of the project team individually, or feel free to contact the ERP mailbox. It's monitored, so we'll receive them, we'll be able to respond. As well as I'm sure if you have purchasing questions, Nina will be around from a business perspective. Obviously, we've got the in-person training sessions, which everyone is aware of because you're here today. And then if you just scroll down, there's the training resources, which are currently available. So we've got them by module. So for today, the relevant ones we'll be purchasing. We'll run through those processes shortly, so I won't go through actually the pieces of information that are available, but also approvals we'll run through today, just for those of us who are approving purchase orders or things like that. Great. So, like I said, the source to pay process is changing. It's not a dramatic change, so don't be too worried, but it is changing. And so we just want everyone to be aware of how it's changing and how that affects you from an end-to-end process perspective. So, what you would be used to in Computron is your first step of the process would be raising a requisition or raising a purchase order to then submit for approval. After you've submitted that for approval, your supervisor will go and approve it. You'll send the purchase order off to the supplier, and then the goods or services will be delivered or whatever it is, and then you will approve the invoice that comes through. So that's the different step. So in OneCouncil, what the process will be, and we will run through this in the system in a minute, but you'll raise a requisition within the system. You'll send that to your approver for it to get approved. The PO is then sent to the supplier. The goods or services are delivered or received, and then you'll complete what is called a goods receipt. And this is in place of that invoice approval. You'll complete a goods receipt, which is essentially just going to the system and marking off that you have received the goods that you ordered through your purchase order. So all the services are complete, or you've received the number of goods that you need to be receiving. We will run through it, but you can do a partial receipt. So if you order 100 things and you receive 20 of them, you can just say that you've received 20 of them. And then once that goods receipt is complete and the invoice is sent through to the AP team by the supplier, the AP team will then match that invoice to the goods receipt as well as the purchase order, and then the supplier can then get paid, basically. So it is a little bit different, but the main step that changes is instead of doing an invoice approval, we just do a goods receipt instead.
On some of our invoices, there'll be, say it's $100 purchase, there'll be that come through on the invoice when we receive the goods, but then if we pay within a certain time, we get a discount off that. So if we don't get the opportunity to approve the lower amount, how's that going to work?
Right, so when it comes through, you would receive the amount that you have paid. So if it's $100 and you get $80 if it comes through sooner, right?
If it's paid sooner.
If it's paid sooner.
Yeah, so we have to do.
Like an early big discount.
Yeah.
But it's not shown on the actual bill.
It's not shown on the invoice.
Not always, and sometimes we are entitled to discounts that we apply and we notify AP that this is how much we're actually going to pay, but it won't say it anywhere on the invoice.
Yeah, so that would probably fall. Sorry.
We're jumping ahead.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
This would be dealt with later on.
Yeah, that's the.
Yeah.
Let's put it on hold. We have
Yeah.
a bunch of questions.
Yeah, no worries. And we'll feel free to ask you questions as we go through. This is like the standard process, I suppose, from raising a requisition, assuming everything's correct, you'll do a goods receipts and assuming that it's correct and stuff, then the invoice will be matched. Where there are where the invoice is incorrect or for things like a non-PO invoice or something like that, obviously the process is slightly different, but we can talk through that once we get to it. But feel free to ask any questions as we go through, of course. Just some notes on the cutover period, so kind of leading up to go live. So our go live is on July 1. And comms have gone out about this and we'll send out some reminders, but we just wanted to make sure that everyone at the training was aware. So after July 1 and in OneCouncil, open purchase orders are not going to be migrated from Computron into OneCouncil. So if you have any open purchase orders, you'll need to recreate those within OneCouncil. Purchase orders will also be limited to just the current financial year. So if you are raising purchase orders across multiple years, you won't be able to do that anymore. You'll have to raise them at the start of each year, basically, if they're going across multiple years. So from the 27th of June, which is the end of next week, access to Computron is going to be limited. So then you'll only be able to do approvals. So before the 27th of June, if you can ensure as much as possible that invoices have been forwarded to the accounts payable team. Because after the 27th of June, any invoices received to the accounts payable inbox will then need to be processed in OneCouncil. So before next Friday, if you could try and make sure that sorry, I think it's maybe running out of batteries or something. I might just turn it off. Let me know if you can't hear me though. So before next Friday, if you can try to, as much as possible, get all your invoices through to the AP team, because otherwise they will need to be processed in OneCouncil, and then from July 1, which is the Tuesday. So we're the 16th right now. So the 27th of June is the last date you'll have access to make changes in Computron or raise things in Computron, that sort of thing. But we would recommend that you try not to raise new things in Computron if they can wait until after July 1. If you can get all your invoices into the AP team before then, they'll be processed as normal through Computron. Our cutover and data migration will occur over the weekend. On the 30th of June, so the Monday, you won't have access to OneCouncil yet, and your access to Computron will be limited to approvals only, so you won't be able to raise any new purchase orders or anything like that. And then from July 1, that's when OneCouncil goes live, and that's when you will have access to be able to raise purchase orders and do everything you need to do in OneCouncil. And you will have access to approve purchase orders within Computron until the 3rd. Is that right, Jen? Again, sorry?
Approve invoices.
Sorry. Approve invoices only until the 3rd, and that's when the AP team are going to do their final payment run for the financial year. Does that make sense to everyone? Basically, if you could just make sure all invoices are sent through to the AP team before the 27th and then approved in early the next week. Sorry, Dan. Yeah.
Just to clarify as well, that any invoices which are processed through Computron will be paid in the final pay run in July. So that means any outstanding invoices in Computron will be paid during that first pay run. It won't be transferred across to Computron.
Does that make sense to everyone? Any questions about any of those dates or what you can and can't do after the 27th? Yeah.
Is there a way to work out like what open purchase orders you do have?
Yes.
Assigned?
There is. I was going to say it on my snap. Look,
Yeah, please.
because the way you've said it is basically any open POs will need to be recreated. Well, that's not necessarily the case, so don't go into a panic. If there's something that you would do on an annual basis as a blanket PO, wait until the 1st of July. Because you may have, because we haven't closed off the system at the end of each financial year, you could go back the last 10 years and you would have quite a number of open purchase orders. So let's concern ourselves with just the current ones that are open, right? Am I making sense? And I would also probably suggest that if an invoice comes in the new financial year and that it was part of an old or previous financial year blanket order, just add it to the new one. You're going to probably find that you will need to wait for invoices to come in before you can do re-enter purchase orders.
Business as usual, use ones.
That, it's still going to be, in some instances, you are going to have to wait for the invoice to come in. Especially for blanket orders where you are ordering multiple things at different prices. You're going to have to wait to see the invoice to be comfortable to receive it. So the process as it is currently isn't going to change. In a perfect world, you will use this receiving because it will help AP process them quicker. But there will be circumstances, especially with blanket orders, where you'll probably feel more comfortable waiting for the invoice to come in and then receive it. I hope that makes sense. It doesn't come sense.
So you're saying if we've got an invoice coming in against an old PO,
Yeah.
we will be able to receipt that against the new PO for that vendor?
Well,
So changing the PO number basically on that.
well, you'll have to re-raise. So what I'm saying is, if it's for a project specific, okay, you raise $5,000 for civil works to get done, and it is the last invoice for that, then I would raise a purchase order just to close that up.
Just for that one.
If it's part of a bulk clothing PO where it's a blanket or quarterly or whatever, just add it to the one that we'll raise for the new financial year. Because if you're gonna go, well, my mind will think that if I have to go and re-raise a purchase order for every open order,
Yep.
I would go into a panic.
So that clothing one's written there.
Yeah.
But we're gonna raise a pretty big PO on first of July anyway.
Yes,
So when you say add it to it, you mean just make sure the amount's
as in,
in there?
as in,
Enough.
no, well, you would include that invoice.
Yeah.
You would receipt it or goods received against a new PO.
Okay.
Don't just raise a PO for that,
Oh,
that invoice, but some people think that when they say that you need to re-enter all your open POs, that you do that, but I would don't do that. Don't make any more work for yourself than is necessary.
Yep, thank you.
What about refunds? So, ratepayer does a refund, and we refund their rates because they didn't overpayment. Normally that would go through the Computron system. So is that the same here, that we've got to stop everything by the 27th of June?
That would be the same, right, Dan?
So what was that, Justine?
Ratepayer refunds.
Yep.
So if a ratepayer has overpaid their rates and we process the refund,
Yep.
we send it through Computron. Does dates apply to that as well? So we stop on the 27th?
Same thing can apply, if it's received by accounts payable, on or before the 27th of June, it'll be processed in Computron.
Yep.
If it's received after that date, it'll be processed.
Okay, cool. That's it, that'll change.
Perfect. All right, if you do have any more questions after the session, obviously feel free to let us know. But we'll move on for now. So accessing OneCouncil. So we have now set everyone up with single sign-on. So this will kind of reflect the access that you'll have at Go Live in terms of how you access it, not necessarily the functions that are accessible to you. So if you do want to, well, as we get into the demonstration, if you do want to jump in and have a play around and click through and raise a purchase order and things like that, if you just go to maroondah-build.t1cloud.com, then that should connect through into your account, I suppose, your Microsoft account, and you should just be able to click log on using Office 365. I'll actually show you what it looks like. So if you go to maroondah-build.t1.com, t1cloud.com, and then you should just be able to click log on using Office 365, and it'll just log on like any of the other apps that you already have on your computer if it's all connected into your account. So you shouldn't need to enter a username or password or anything like that. And if you do ever want to use OneCouncil on your phone, you should be able to do it in a similar sort of manner, same as if you access Teams or your email through your phone. You just have to do the Microsoft Authenticator app. But you shouldn't need to input any credentials. But if you are having any trouble, let me know, because we did only turn it on Friday. So, but everyone should have accounts created if they are, if you did register for this session. And make that a little bit bigger, actually. So if you, yeah,
Our problem charts, I mean.
Obviously,
That's why we like. Those ones coming from. Yes, one sec.
Those that were.
Going to be a special night soon.
True, you have to kind of gigs every week, like.
You actually give RSP pages. That's wrong. Yeah, well, that was just.
Not trying, it's not
this is just going to be a change.
Suppose. Doesn't come true.
That's it. It'll be, it's essentially like, it's just not specific. Is anyone else having trouble? Yes?
Like, but I use this shape. One of these.
Yeah, I'll put that on.
It's in
Yeah, actually, Adrian, you too. We do have Adrian from here, so we might be able to. Well, we might just run through anyway. If you do have any problems, just stick your hand up, but I think we're mostly pretty good. Cool. So when you log in, it should look something like this. It might not look exactly the same. You might have a few different tiles here, but it'll look pretty much like that. All right. So. What's that? Yeah, I think I just unplugged them a little bit. So, like I said before, we are just going to run through basically the end-to-end process for purchasing, which is going to be raising requisition, getting it approved. It'll become a purchase order. We can then transmit. And then we will do a goods receipt against that purchase order and just confirm that we have received it, to then allow the AP team to attach that invoice to the purchase order and get the supplier paid. All right. Okay, we're back. Perfect. So, like I said, everyone should have an account that looks pretty much like this. You may have different tiles here, but it'll look pretty much the same as that. And just note, this is just a build environment for testing. So nothing in here is going to go anywhere. So if we send out a purchase order or something like that, it's not actually going to go to the supplier. We can't break anything in here, so feel free to click around and see what you can do. As well as the access that you have within this system is generic in nature. And so depending on what your role is at council and what things you need access to, it might look a little bit different at Go Live. But I'll run through a little bit what that looks like. So just to give you a bit of an overview of what OneCouncil is and some of the functionality of it as a system in general, before we get into the actual process for purchasing. So it is a browser-based system, as you've just seen by typing in the URL. So when we go live, it'll be a similar sort of system. So you'll just click through SmartNet or wherever the icon is. You just click the icon and it'll take you straight there, and then it'll log you in like it has done. One of the benefits that we have, because it's a browser-based system as compared to like a system that is an application, is that we can use multiple tabs if we want to, if we need to be looking at multiple things at the same time. So I can click through and do various things. Like I said before, it is accessible on mobile, so you can do anything that you can do on the computer, you can do on mobile, and it'll look similar. It'll just be obviously smaller because it's on a mobile. So if you do want to jump in and do approval or something on the go, you can do that. I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing the really complicated stuff on mobile because it's going to be a pain when you're not able to click through on a PC, but you can do it. So in terms of the homepage, this is what it looks like, and this is what it will look like at Go Live as well. So you'll have all these different little tiles. You'll have these tabs up the top. So the tabs up the top are the functions that relate to your account. So for everyone here, because we all have the same access right now, it'll say home, contracts, and purchasing. So purchasing is the one that we're going to be interested in for today, and this will have all your functions relating to purchasing. Ignore the numbers because I know it says 106 purchase orders, but that's just because we have generic access at the moment. But you can, if you're particularly interested in having everything on your home page, or you want to sort things out in a particular manner, you can do that. If you say, for example, you want to have your goods receipts on your home page, you can just add it to your home, or you can make folders. You just click there and then move to. You can have folders, or you can do whatever you want, really. So I'll move back to main, have your folders. It's not necessarily going to be easier to do that sort of stuff if you only have the basic access to purchasing and contracts, for example, because there's not that many functions that you're going to have access to. But because this is an ERP system, which is enterprise resource planning, basically the idea of an ERP system is that you can add different functionality into the system and have kind of one system for all of the needs of the business. So right now we're doing the finance and procurement modules. Phase 2 is asset management, so there'll be a few more modules added in. And then ECM is phase 3, as well as there may be some more in the future. So for the moment, it's just going to be mainly purchasing. If you're a standard user, you may have access to contracts and you may get access to budgeting, for example. Obviously, then the AP team and the procurement team might have access to some of the more admin stuff. Cool. There is also this help function up the top. So if you click that, that kind of brings you to what's called the Tech One University. So Tech One is the vendor that supply OneCouncil. So they have just a little bit of information about kind of every part of the system that you can see. You can search for topics here. They'll have like some little videos and maybe some like user guides and transcripts and stuff in there. If you are on a particular page, like if you're in purchase orders, for example, and you do click that help button, it will look for things that are related to the page that you're on. Just a note there, though, that it is this information is generic in nature. So we've gone through our own configuration process to make sure that the system works for us and kind of adheres to Maroondah's requirements. But the information within the Tech One University is generic and their base system. So if you are looking for information on how to do certain things, we probably recommend going to our user guides and our training videos first before you do this. So this can be helpful if you're just looking for like a glossary, for example, or something like that. Cool. So the other thing is you've got your enterprise search up the top. So if you're a particular module, again, you're not going to have access to that many things, but if you can't find your purchase orders, for example, you can just type in purchase orders and it'll be there. You can also set your own delegations now. So if you are going away for a couple of weeks or however long it is, and you need to delegate your tasks to someone else within your team, you don't need to fill out the form anymore. You can manage that yourself. So to do that, we'll just go up to the top into your account, and then you go My Account, and then you can see there's a tab called Delegations. And so this is where you can delegate to others, and it'll also show you if there's anyone that has delegated to you. So Alex Freeman, who is one of the Technology One consultants, was testing the delegation, and he delegated my role to him, and it was from the 1st of May to the 2nd of May. But if I wanted to delegate I can either delegate everything to someone, or I can just delegate my tasks. If I just want to delegate like the approvals, I can do that. So I just add, and then I would just choose who I want to delegate to. I can pick a start and an end date and a reason, and then that delegation would begin on that date. So if the person that I'm delegating to doesn't have the correct accesses for the delegation, they will be given the accesses. So they'll sort of be given the role that you have essentially. Or if you're just delegating my tasks, then it'll just give them the ability to approve the things that they need to approve for my tasks. Cool. The final thing is there is under your homepage, you have a few different tabs. The main one is going to be My Task, and we'll run through that a little bit more in a bit. But basically, this is where if anything is assigned to you, if you have any draft requisitions, or if you have like a purchase order that's been assigned to you for approval, or anything that requires your actioning, you'll get an email about it. And then it'll sit in My Tasks until it's been completed. So this will have all of your approvals in it. If someone submits something to you, just go into here and then you can approve. So right now I have a goods receipt that needs approving, and I have a few other things that are sitting with me for actioning. Cool. So we will jump into the purchasing process now. So like I said, the first step for the purchasing process, which is the same as what you do now, is to raise a requisition. So to do that, you just go to the purchasing tab, and then you click My Requisitions. And so this will come up with all of the requisitions that are associated with your account, noting that a requisition is the precursor to a purchase order. So once a requisition has been approved, it'll move into the purchase orders. So this is just a draft requisition I have in there for whatever reason. I'll click Add, and then if I just create a blank requisition, this will come up with basically just the core information that I need to put into the requisition to then create it as a draft. So this will be things like if it's a standard purchase order or a blanket purchase order. I'll just do a standard one for the moment. If you have a contract number, you can put it in here. And the procurement policy does still apply, the MCC procurement policy. So if it's over $5,000 up to $15,000, you need one quote. So you will need to attach an attachment, and I'll show you what that looks like.
Sorry, we're going to change that contract number to read control purchase order number, so that if you know what the old purchase order number is, and if you don't know how to find that, I can help you beforehand. Then it will help us help you.
Yeah.
So we will change that so that if you do know what the old purchase order number is, then we'll get you to pop that in there.
Yeah, and if it is related to a contract, you just want them to put it in as an exemption.
Because you will be raising purchase orders as an exemption.
Yeah, perfect. No worries, not.
So why do we have to put the old purchase order number in?
If you know it, pop it in. it's gonna help us, because then we can report on it. And don't forget, we do compliance reporting, so. Well, this is the thing, we're moving to a new system, so obviously there will be some tolerances. We have to take into consideration that we're not migrating it across. So there are going to be instances where we've put the raised up, and so we're not going to.
Yeah, but what if we, DBS, for example, DBS plumbing, if we raise, we go in on the 1st of July, do I have to find one of their old?
No, this is, I'm only saying that for if you had to replace. So it's not a blanket order, it was say in order for a specific civil works.
Oh, right, okay.
Well, yes, so if it's sort of replacing an old order, you don't have to, but if you know what the old order was, it would be helpful to move in there.
Yeah.
So it's not a mandatory field, so moving forward, once we get past this sort of transition phase, that will probably disappear altogether.
It's not.
Not mandatory, is what I heard.
I'll get in later. We'll get you into compliance.
Yeah, so if you, like I said, the procurement policy will apply, so if it's over $5,000, you do need to have a quote or a number of quotes, depending on how much it is. They'll just be added as attachments. But obviously, if you have a certificate of waiver or an exemption, then you can do that here. So, but if you do say yes to the certificate of waiver, for example, it still will require you to attach a certificate of waiver. And if you say yes to the exemption, you just have to put in the exemption reason. But for the purposes of this, I'm just going to not have either of those. So I'll just save. And so now this is going to create a draft requisition. So you can see here, this is just like this is just kind of like a preview requisition. It's not actually what gets sent out at all. It just kind of gives you an overview of what the information is. And if you are on a desktop, because I'm on a laptop, it's kind of zoomed in a lot, but if you're on a desktop or on a bigger screen with a larger resolution, it'll look a little bit different because it'll have something on the right here and you can play around with how big these tabs are and these windows are and stuff, but for the purposes of this, I'll just zoom in. So you have a few tabs on the left-hand side, and that's basically where you're going to input all your information. So the first thing you probably do is you'll put in the requested items and what you're actually raising the purchase order for. So I can just go into there and click add. You can add in your supplier. There's a few ways you can add in the supplier. You can just pick through a list, which is going to be a bit annoying, or you can obviously search for them here, or you can click advanced search here and you can see a little bit more information about the supplier, if you're searching for anything in particular, but you can type in anything here. So if you know their ABN, for example, you can type your ABN in here. But if you just know what they're called, you can also just type that in here. So if I want to raise it for Adidas, for example, I just type that in here and it comes up with all their information. It'll input all their preview information from the supplier account. And then I can just put in what item I'm actually ordering from Adidas. So I'm just ordering some shoes. You can put in some more descriptions, you can put in comments. You can say it's good or a service here. So if you're doing, I don't know, some, whatever it is, a service, you can nominate that in here. If it's a good, obviously it'll have a quantity and a unit name, a unit amount. But if it's a service, obviously those things will disappear and it'll just be how much the service is for. So I'm going to say goods. I'm going to say I'm ordering 10 pairs of shoes. They're going to be for $100 each, for example. And then that's going to come out at $1,000 for the line amount. Then you can, for the item, you can then put in the cost accounts. So this is going to be obviously the account codes that are charged against. So the cost account codes are changing a little bit. So you are used to an activity code and then an account code. This is now changing to it's 4 numbers now. So you have a project, cost center, activity, and natural account. It sounds worse than it is. So the project code is basically what your activity code was before. It's like that overarching project. The cost center is just the account that sits under the project. So if I pick one of these projects, for example, these are all tests again. there's no real information in here. This will just have the one cost center against that. So you're not actually picking anything there. And then the activity is just if it's an operational or a capital activity. So for me, this is just operational. And then the natural account code is what you would be used to as the account code. So you're kind of still picking the same number of things. It's just the string, the number string is different. So this would be like if it was for some material or something like that. So if you have the code, you can always just put it in here. If you know the code is called, you can type in the code description. Or you can do the drop down and you can have a look at the codes that you have access to. Just noting here that at Go Live, you will only have access to the account codes relevant to your role. So if you only raise purchase orders against codes associated with your service area, you'll only have access to those codes. But if you are in a position where you have to raise purchase orders for other service areas or something like that, then you'll have that broader access.
I'm sorry, you have to do it.
Another note here is obviously we know the codes are changing, so we're going to provide you with a cheat sheet of if your old code was 1, 2, 3, your new code will be 3, 4, 5, so something like that. So we'll provide you with that cheat sheet, so you can just type in what the old code is if you know it, and then it'll tell you what the new code should be while you're getting used to all the new codes. But again, you're only going to have access to the codes that are relevant to your role. So there will be less codes for you to worry about, but we know there will be a transition period of getting used to it. So hopefully it won't be too bad with the cheat sheet. But like I said, yes, there are 4 numbers, but really the cost center is just one. There's only one account that sits under it, and then the activity is just if it's operational or capital. So that you're in practice, you are still using only really the project and the natural account of things that you would need to know.
Just going back to the due date on the previous page.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just going to put a random code just so I don't lose all this.
I know it's a required field.
Yeah. Is that required, this one?
Yeah. How important, like sometimes we don't actually know.
Well, currently, when you raise the representative, it's got today's date as the default date, so we don't change it normally, it's going to be,
Okay.
it's very similar to what we currently.
I'm just wondering if we didn't know, we weren't super accurate with that, if it's going to cause any issues. Okay.
Oh, it's date required.
Yeah, that's just the,
Date area.
oh, there was a due date area.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Was there?
Oh, that would be in relation to probably the blanket order.
Oh, due date. Oh, it's the same, it's the same thing, basically. It's just because this is by item and the other one's by.
Yeah. It will, I'm pretty sure that depends on what it does now. So if it's important that something is delivered by a particular date, then use it. If not, then I can't.
And there was also a priority.
Yeah.
That may,
What was it?
So it has priority.
Items.
So is that if we need something more?
This is mostly just going to be for like reporting purposes. So I think, yeah, it's not. It doesn't. This doesn't turn up on any. This doesn't turn up on the purchase order or anything. We can remove it if it's not required, but that's a business call rather than a.
Well, it would
system.
end up being whether it actually shows on the register, purchase order.
Yeah, so it doesn't show on the purchase order.
No, I know.
Yeah. So then it's up to you basically if it needs to be required, but we can take that offline and then we can decide what's required. But yeah, this is an internal field, so the supplier doesn't see it. It's just whether it's needed for like internal reporting or something.
there's less things you have to fill in.
Yeah, so regardless.
Default, it doesn't matter, like it's already there.
No, but if we can, I've already tried to remove things that aren't relevant or necessary to make it as streamlined as possible, but it's new to me as well, so I'm sure over time it will get more streamlined.
Yeah, so if obviously this is a test environment, so there may be some slight tweaks to how it looks in the end state, but this is pretty representative of how it'll look. So just back to the cost accounts, just so I can cost what I'm actually getting. I'm just going to pick a random cost code because it doesn't matter for a test environment. If you are in there and testing, there are a couple in here that are inactive, I believe. So if you do get that, oh, maybe not, maybe they've been removed. Oh, there we go. So it'll just say that it's inactive, and please put in an active account. Just pick a different one because obviously it's a test environment. There's not everything is going to be fully accurate. If you do need to cost the item against multiple accounts, you can do that in here as well. So this item was for $1,000, for example. If I do want to cost it against 2 accounts or 3 accounts or whatever it is, I can do that. I'll just pick the other account that I want to cost it against, and then it has the dissection amount, which is the total cost that I'm doing. So if I wanted to do $500 and $500, for example, then I can do that. And then if I want to do it against more accounts, I can do that as well.
Sorry, is that for the one PO that you've created?
This is for the item against the line item against the PO.
Sure.
You can raise different by multiple line items anyway. But this is if you're ordering like one service and then you'll need to cost that against different accounts, for example.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. So I'm now just going to save that. So I've now added that item to my requisition. Obviously, you can add different multiple line items if you want to. And then the last thing that I have to do, unless I need to attach attachments for whatever reason, is I just need to put in delivery address. And you can just go into addresses here, and then you can pick the address that's relevant, as well as put in any delivery instructions if you need to do that. So I'm just going to say that this is going to be delivered to the operations center, and I'll just click save. Down the bottom, you can add in attachments if you need to add in attachments. So you can just add it from your local drive. You can drag and drop if that's easier, whatever is best for you, as well as you can attach basically any file. You can attach PDFs, Word documents, emails, Excel spreadsheets if relevant, pretty much whatever you want. Cool. So now my requisition is complete. I'm just going to submit it for approval. Just click submit for approval. I'll just say who I want to submit it to. I'm just going to submit it to my other account. But obviously you can't approve your own. And then add in comments if you need to, and then just click save, and then that will send it off for approval. So we'll send off to your manager or your supervisor. If it hasn't been approved, you can always recall it and then change it and resend it off if you've made a mistake. But
Is that list of approvers limited only to your direct approvers, or is it an open list?
so right now it'll be an open list. So you'll be able to put in who you need to select, because there are some people who need to move around and pick different people. But obviously it's going to be limited to the ability for an approver to approve something is going to be limited by number one, their financial delegation. So they need to have the ability to approve certain amounts, as well as they need to have access to the account code that you put in. So if I submit something to Kate, for example, and she doesn't have access to the say cyber and technology account code that I've put in, then she won't be able to approve that with the requisition tool. So once you've submitted the requisition, it'll go to your manager or your supervisor, whoever it is, and then, like I said, anytime something is sent to you or something like that, it'll send you an email, number one, and then it'll appear in my tasks. So I've just gone into my other account, and if I just go into my tasks, there should now be a requisition for $1,000 for me to approve from me. I've messed up all how it looks, but it's just here. So I've got requisition for shoes for $1,000. It's from me to me. You've got all the information in here for the requisition itself. It gives you that preview once it loads, as well as if you put any attachments against it, they'll come up here. They can approve here, or they can always open it up in there and look through the same sort of screen that we had before, as well as they can reject it and anything like that. So, but for purposes of this, I'm just going to click approve. And then once that requisition is approved, it then becomes a purchase order. So it would again email you to say that your requisition has been approved and it's now become a purchase order. And then it should now be available in my user account. If I go back to purchasing, it's now going to be under purchase orders, or it'll be under my purchase orders, really, because my purchase orders is going to be the ones that are associated with my account. So these are all the purchase orders that I have. And so you can see at the top here, Adidas Australia for $1,000 on order is the status, which means that it's basically just ready to be received, transmitted, amended, whatever it is. So from here, you can do three main things. You can amend a purchase order, you can transmit it, or you can do goods receipts against it.
Well, I'll point out that the requisition number, once it's
Yes.
approved, the PO number will not be the same. It's going to be.
Yes, so the number associated with the purchase order, I think it was probably like requisition number 200 and something. The purchase order number now is purchase order 115. And basically the reason for that is if there's draft requisitions or something, or there's requisitions that haven't been approved, then the numbers don't correlate basically because they both counter. So don't rely on your requisition number being your purchase order number because they won't be the same. But you've got your purchase order number here, which is going to be the more relevant thing. Cool. So from here, I can transmit the order. So I can just click those three dots and click transmit order. I can preview what the purchase order is actually going to look like in document preview. And if you're on a bigger screen, it'll just come up with the preview on the right hand side. If you can do two things. You can send it directly through the system, or you can download the purchase order and send it manually. If you do want to send it straight through the system, basically it'll send with this information here. So you can change the two. Obviously, it doesn't have one in there at the moment, but that's just because the supplier account associated with this test supplier doesn't have an email address. But
If it does have, can I say, it does have an email address linked to a header.
Yeah.
So it will probably possibly more than likely be a remittance, which so just override it if you're sending it to someone in particular.
yeah, so you can, if you just click, you can always click edit and then change any of the details here. So you can change who it goes to. You can CC someone, you can CC yourself if you want to, or whatever it is. I won't bother actually sending it, but hopefully this should preview. If you are ready to send it and you just want to send it through the system, you can just click transmit. Otherwise, once it actually generates, so we'll refresh the box. Once it actually generates, then you can download it and do whatever you need to do with it. I might just give it one more minute to see if it actually wants to do it. There we go. So this is the purchase order itself. It's not too dissimilar to what you would be used to, but you can always download it if you just click the two arrows there and then you can save it into whatever it is, and then do whatever you need to do with it, basically. But I'm not actually going to click transmit because it won't do anything. It's not going to go anywhere in a test environment. I'll just go back. So the other two things you can do is you can amend a purchase order. Basically, if you want to change it, change any of the details.
Thank you.
You see you later. To amend purchase order, you just create amendment. You can change any of the details you want to change into it in it. I won't do it all just now, but basically you would just change it and then you resubmit it for approval. So it goes through the same sort of process. So if you need to up it to order 15 units instead of 10 units, you would just add 5 units and then resubmit it for approval. And it kind of just goes through the same process as raising a new requisition. As well as it'll be captured on the audit trail of that purchase order as well. So when you go into the actual purchase order, it'll say how many amendments have happened to that purchase order. Cool. So the final step for the user, assuming everything is going right, is you will then do a goods receipt against the order. So once the order has been received, so once I've received the shoes that I ordered from Adidas, I would come into the purchase order, click the three dots, and I would receive order lines. So this is how you create a goods receipt and do the receipting against the order. So depending on how many you receive, so if you receive the entire order or the service is fully completed, then you can receive the order completely. Or if you only receive part of it, you can do a partial receipt. And basically that's just depending on how many you put in here. So I ordered 10 pairs of shoes. So if I only received 5, I just put in 5 here. Similarly with a service or a blanket requisition, if I received $1,000 of goods from a $10,000 blanket requisition or a blanket purchase order, then I'll just put in $1,000. So let's just say I've received 5, I'll click add. If you have multiple order lines, then it would be in here. So you can receive multiple things at the same time, just going the other way. Then I click continue. And this will just give me basically the overview of what the goods receipt is for. So it's $500 because the receipt quantity was 5. It's got my dissections here, but if I do need to change the account code that it's against, I can always just click edit and I can change the account code here. Or if I need to receive it against a different account code than I originally put in. And then I just click approve. And then I've now confirmed that I've received 5 of the 10 that I ordered. And then if I just go back into the purchase order, it should say partially received up here. And then if I then, next time I receive some more goods from this order, if I go to receive it, it'll only let me receive 5 more, basically. So then that was worth $500 because it was 5 times 100. So when the invoice goes through to the AP team, through the AP mailbox for the $500 from that supplier, AP team will match that to the goods receipt that I've just completed, which also connects to the purchase order. And then assuming all of that lines up, then they'll pay the invoice and the supplier will get paid. If there are at any point in the process any discrepancies or something that doesn't quite work, if the AP team receive an invoice that doesn't have a purchase order against it or doesn't have a goods receipt against it, they will basically just send that through to you through my tasks. You'll receive an email about it. It'll sit in your tasks, and then it'll say purchase order or invoice received, no purchase order or something like that, and then you just need to raise a purchase order, or depending on the process for that particular thing, you'll need to approve the invoice or something like that if it's a non-purchase order invoice or something like that. But this would be the general process, say, end to end of what what it ideally looks like. But if at any point there are issues or the matching doesn't quite work from the AP invoice to the goods receipts, then basically the AP team will just get in contact and say it's not lining up. Let's fix it, basically. And you just need to either rectify the purchase order, raise the goods receipt, or approve the invoice or something like that. Cool. Are there any questions on the process? So that's pretty much what it looks like end to end, from raising a purchase order or raising a requisition into a purchase order into a goods receipt. So that's everything from an end user perspective. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask them now. Otherwise, happy if people want to get sort of 50 minutes back in their day, 55 minutes back in their day, if you do want to go do BAU, but I'll be hanging around, so feel free to come and ask any questions about the project or the process or any of the other modules as well. Happy to answer any questions, or if you have anything now. Otherwise, thank you very much. Yeah, sorry.
I don't know if it's going to be explained in a different training session, but does it show you where it's at? Like what's, like, status? As in, if I've sent it to be approved.
Oh, yes, sorry, yeah. So basically, if a requisition will be sent, it'll say like complete or something like that, and it'll be sitting with the approver. But from a purchase order, because once that is approved, it becomes a purchase order.
Yeah.
So from a purchase order perspective, there are a few different things that you will you'll take note of. So this one says on order, which basically just means that I haven't received any of the goods, but it's on order. This one that I've just done because I partially received it, so it's been partially received. This one has been fully received because it's basically complete. There's no more.
It's just like, I really see the audit trail.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, sorry. Yes, you want to see the audit trail. So just up here, you can see audit details if this is what you're looking for.
Yeah, like sometimes if
Oh, I don't know
there's
access to it.
multiple managers.
Oh,
you
you do.
see who's holding on to it.
Oh, who's holding? Okay, yes.
But the whole process, and then when it's paid,
Yeah.
like in Computron, it's different areas.
Yeah.
Where you see the.
So you can just go into a purchase order. If you just want to see where it's at, we might not have access to it.
That's Boland's page.
Was very big, so it's not integrated, you know, we records, was it on the records system or against the purchase orders, we can see where it's at? So that you know who it's sitting with, so it's gone off for approval, for instance, and.
Yeah, sorry, it's got authorization history up here. So this is on the requisition, and the managers should be able to see this as well. But it's basically got this is for the requisition. So if it's in the purchase order stage, it's just always going to be sitting with you.
Yeah.
So it's not going to have an authorization history against it. But
So does this system have, basically from start to finish, is there anywhere in it a page where it's told you once an invoice is paid, then
Like, you're even talking about once it goes to AP, an invoice, once we've approved or received it,
In one page.
do we know the status of the invoice, when the invoice is going to be paid?
so it's
Do we
against
account
the
for what they've done with it?
yeah, so it's against the status of the purchase order itself. So this will say invoice paid once the invoice has been paid here. So
is that a date and all that? Like, does it?
yeah, if you're in the details of the thing, you can see the date of when you've received lines. So it should, and then you can see what's outstanding, what's been goods receipted. So you can see here, this is the goods receipt that I did, and it has the details here of like when it was and how much it was for, and you can see if the invoice has been paid or something like that. Is that what you're looking for?
That'll make, yeah, that's,
And it says like the invoice status here is not started. If the invoice had been paid, it would say invoice paid.
yeah.
Okay, would it, if it wasn't paid, but being processed to be paid, do you know what I mean? Like, if it's in that waiting to be paid, do we see when it's due to be paid? Because we get a lot of requests like that from suppliers, where's it at?
When it's going to be paid. Well, because presumably, I think basically it'll auto match it. So as soon as the invoice comes through, if it auto matches it, so if the invoice is correct, the purchase order is correct, or the goods receipt is correct, then it'll auto match it here and say that the invoice has been matched.
Yep.
And then once it's paid, it'll update to.
But it won't give us a date when it's going to be paid?
We just assume the next payment.
No.
No.
Standard payment, payment between council 30 days.
Yeah.
So unless it's a problem payment.
Yeah.
We just do it in case. Standard term payment 30 days.
So for example, for us, we're having companies come back to us and say, this invoice hasn't been paid. We've checked to see if we've sent it to AP, not bagging AP at all, but somewhere along the way, we've sent it to AP to get paid. It looks like it hasn't been paid because the company's come back to us saying, when is it getting paid? And we've got no track that AP then received it.
So even, isn't that screen of the white show?
Yes,
It's
it's fine.
I don't know if you can hide it and,
This
This
one.
see on the right hand, so on the left, you can double it, immediately you can see on the right hand side of the invoice.
Yeah. And
So
yeah, you
that-
can see what's been invoiced.
That's a way of checking that at least the invoice is going against that relevant PO.
Yeah, so you can see if it's been paid, but you can't see when it will be paid if it hasn't, because that depends on business rules. Yeah.
We'll use this, like currently, we can go in and see AP, we can do AP inquiries, does the system let us do that?
Yeah, I believe that Colette is looking at getting basically like a view access. Yeah, essentially.
That's, I think that's what we're going from.
Yeah.
Once we've done our bit and all that, we get all that.
Sure,
We
yeah,
want to know the status of it in AP.
sure.
Because we get a lot of requests from
Yeah.
suppliers asking.
February saying your bill hasn't been paid, and we're like, well, is that?
Right, yeah,
And we can't see, has AP actually paid it and the company's mislated, or has it got stuck somewhere? Has the AP even received it, even though we send it?
Yeah,
Because we mainly work on blanket purchase orders as well. That's
Yeah.
maybe where the like.
yeah.
Yeah.
So did you have
It'd be
something?
ideal if you had like a column that said payment due or payment will be done, scheduled.
So you'll be able to see against the purchase order itself if the invoice has been matched or paid.
Yeah.
It's just not gonna, it won't give you a date because that's gonna depend on the business rules of council. So we can't put a date in there necessarily. But we can, but you'll probably encounter the same sort of issue, but you'll have access to be able to see the status of the order and the invoice itself, but not a date.
Not at a glance.
Because it just depends on, it's 30 days, so depends on the AP team.
Yeah, I just thought, I was hoping the system might have had that as a column that it would leave it to you. You know, because some of them aren't prompt payments, some of them aren't, you know, 30 days, so, but that's okay.
Yeah. So did you have something did you have something, Dan, to add?
Well, I just think you would, as quite complicated, you would have to have some sort of asset from the supplier. To actually see from a payment perspective. And unless Colette can come up with some solution, I guess there'd be some sensitive information against that supplier, which would mean that giving access really clearly to end user.
Yeah, so yeah, basically we'll be able to see the status, but you'll probably be able to see a similar amount of information as you can now. You'll be able to see the status, but you won't be able to see the date to when it's going to get paid.
It'll be just in like.
It needs to be some kind of a view on the AP side, not that I need to understand information, not at the moment. If I wanted to search on an AP voucher, I can do that if it's on stuff I would expect the system doesn't. You'll need to have some kind of access to search for things from that side.
It might be a report rather than
Yeah,
a specific screen going to.